our other amazing advocate is right there. Don Helgel. Thank you. I had it earlier. Um, he is actually here from Canada. We were a little unsure if he was going to make it earlier in the week. So we are beyond thrilled to have him here today. He, like Danielle, has done so much. He is a patient advocate. He is a 3-time cancer survivor. And he is part of a wonderful organization called Man Up to Cancer. Men, you are not alone. And I think it's really important to know that there are people out there who understand and the things that you have done. He's the director of meetups and chapters, and he lets men know that it's okay to feel vulnerable and you have a community. And I'm so excited to hear from you, but I won't steal his thunder. So with that.
That should suffice. That would work. Excellent. I just realized that I'm what's standing between you and happy hour. So I'll do my best to get through this as quickly as possible. I'm extremely excited to be here today. I am extremely grateful to be here today. Air Canada almost didn't make it happen. And so Swati, Ashley, thank you for getting me here. We had a plan B, but it was going to be ugly, but here today. And I love to tell my story. You can ask my wife, who's seated over here. Quite often in an airport, in a restaurant, I wear a lot of clothing that it is very indicative that I have had cancer. I have the tattoo right here as well. And I usually say, do you want the 2-minute version or do you want the 20-minute version? So luckily you get the 20-minute version today. So this is the clicker here. So again, my name is Don Helgeson. I'm coming to you from Vancouver Island, British Columbia in Canada. Lynch syndrome has been a huge part of my family, but before we were even diagnosed with Lynch syndrome, cancer was a huge part of our family. It's all I've ever known in our family. I have dealt with my mental health quite a bit over the last probably 10 to 15 years. I'm a retired police officer. You saw the previous slide. I was a Canadian Mountie. And one of the things that I do to maintain my mental health is I do an awful lot of walking. I do some weight exercises, and that's what keeps things at bay. And about 3 weeks ago, just before I finished this presentation, I was listening to a podcast while I was walking, and I heard this quote, "Don't think there are no crocodiles just because the water is calm." And that's an African proverb. And I thought, man, does that ever apply to what my life is like? As a police officer, the organization I'm with the family, I'm considered the strong one in the family. Everything looks calm on the surface, but that's not necessarily what it is. And I've always thought, especially after reading this, that those crocodiles are actually down there. And for me, that's the cancer. That's all the stuff that's getting thrown at me. That's the stuff that's dealing with my mental health. And so my life with Lynch, I've done things to try to manage that, to deal with the anxiety, to deal with the sleepless nights. So a bit more about me. I'm 55 years old. I'm the eldest biological child of my parents, Judy and Gordon. As I said earlier, I'm a recently retired Canadian Mountie, having served 28 years across Canada. I currently live in Nanaimo, British Columbia, Canada, with my beautiful and supportive wife Lisa, again, who's seated over here. We've been together for 15 years, and on our first date, I disclosed to her that I didn't have Lynch syndrome, but we didn't know yet, but that we had significant cancer history, and she still took on this role to be with me. So very grateful for that. Together, we have a blended family of 4 daughters, including my stepdaughter, Michelle, who's aged 18. I have 3 biological daughters, Lindsay, who's 32, Lauren, who actually just turned 31 today, and Reagan, who is 29. I have 1 biological granddaughter, Georgia. She's 8 years old, and a step-grandson, Logan, who's 13. And I have 1 biological brother, Larry, who's 52. And that'll become more prevalent. You'll see why I'm telling you this here in a few minutes. And the big one for me right now, what's really been a saving grace is I'm currently serve as a cancer advocate and as the director of chapters and meetups for Man Up to Cancer. And we're an international online community supporting men facing cancer. And basically what we do is we make sure that every man who's facing cancer, whether they're a patient, survivor, or a male caregiver, know that they're not alone going through this journey, and make sure that they don't isolate. Make sure that they realize that they can speak to other men near where they live, or they can speak to other men who are facing a similar cancer diagnosis. And in my case, I was diagnosed with my third cancer at age 50, prostate cancer, which we'll talk a bit more in a minute. But you try to find somebody else who's 50 years old or 51 years old who has prostate cancer who can help you with some treatment decisions. It's not easy. You can find lots of 70 and 80-year-old men, and their advice is not necessarily the advice that I wanted. So my diagnosis, I was mentioning there's been lots of cancer in our family. That's me with my mom, Judy. And in Tucson, we got to go to the Cologuard Classic, which is put on by Exact Sciences. And her story is quite significant as well with her cancer history. And she was kind of the star of the show with my group of friends there that night. And we got to meet some pretty important people, including Katie Couric and Jerry Kelly. And it was amazing to get her have an opportunity to do some of the things that I do with my advocacy. In the early 2000s, the Ontario Familial Colorectal Cancer Registry realized that our family had some significant things going on, and as a result, our family became a part of a study, and we all started to provide our blood samples to get tested. And as I said, all living family members on the maternal side of my family provided blood samples in those mid-2000s, early 2000s to study the hereditary forms of their colon cancer diagnosis. And in 2011, it was officially confirmed that several members of my family, including me, we carried the MSH2 Lynch syndrome gene mutation. And where I live in British Columbia, the BC Cancer Agency has monitored my health since that time, including providing the genetic counseling that we talked about so much last night. And it's one of the other reasons why I know I'm still here and my mental health is where it's at, but it's also why I'm doing what I'm doing today. The Lynch syndrome history, the photo at the top there, that's my mom's mom, my grandma Kirkland, shortly before she died. Her mother died from colon cancer in her late 40s. Her brother died from colon cancer also in his late 40s. And so my maternal grandmother, Joan, she died from confirmed stage 4 colon cancer in 1977 at age 52. That's me sitting on my grandfather's lap, and that's my little brother just after he was born sitting on my grandma. And I started to realize, just going through this slide presentation a couple of days ago, that she would have had colon cancer in this picture and didn't know it. My mother was diagnosed with stage 2 colon cancer in 1993 at the age of 42. She had stage 2 uterine cancer at age 45 and a recurrence of stage 2 colon cancer at age 58. She's now 74 years of age and cancer-free. What my mother did in 1993, I consider her to be, I think you would all agree that family secrets can really impact lives. And it wasn't common for people to share their cancer stories, especially cancers below the belt. But my mom, she talked to everybody about what was going on. And that included her 3 siblings. And so 2 of the 3 siblings, my uncle and my aunt, they went and got colonoscopies right after my mom was diagnosed. And at the exact same time, they both had stage 2 colon cancer as well. 3 of the 4 children had colon cancer at the exact same time. And the uncle that didn't, he was actually later on tested negative for Lynch syndrome. So it just goes to show how powerful our mutation has been. Coincidentally, my maternal uncle died from stage 4 prostate cancer at the age of 65 after being diagnosed 3 years earlier. And for him, he didn't know. He knew to be looking and getting his colonoscopies. He knew to be looking to get follow-ups for CRC, but he didn't know to be checking for prostate cancer. And he, by the time he got, they found out his diagnosis, he was already stage 4. But he, on his deathbed, I went to see him a couple of days before he died. And he actually helped save my life because he informed me about the PSA test and the importance of that. And it is actually one of the reasons why I'm still standing here on the stage. My maternal aunt, who also had CRC at the same time as my mom, she's also had bladder and kidney cancers, and she actually had a benign brain tumor as well. And then my brother tested negative for Lynch syndrome, and he's cancer-free. Now, as far as me, I was diagnosed with malignant melanoma in 1996. I was in my late 20s. Stage 1 colon cancer in 2007. I was 37 years old. And then most recently, I was diagnosed with stage 3 prostate cancer at the age of 51 in 2020. So, interestingly, although I'm a Canadian, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the province of British Columbia, with our free healthcare system, got really behind with uh, being treatment options. And so the picture here, you'll see that I'm actually getting treatment in Bellingham, Washington. They sent a bunch of us down to Bellingham to get our cancer treatments. And that was after my last treatment and just before I was getting ready to ring the bell. So my cancer diagnosis and treatments, I had malignant melanoma, as I said. It was an irregular shaped mole that was removed along with surrounding tissue at the age of 26. I didn't think too much about it at the time, and I still don't know to this day if there's any relation to Lynch syndrome. Colon cancer, I had laparoscopic resection of my descending colon at age 37 in 2007. Very similar. I was really worried about having the bag afterwards. And that was the last conversation I had with my surgeon before I went under. And I said, "What do you think?" And he goes, "Well, we're going to try not to, but it's always a possibility." And I remember waking up in the recovery room, and the first question I asked the nurse, and she said, "No, you had a successful resection." So, and then the prostate cancer, I had a radical prostatectomy, and that is the removal of the prostate at age 51 in early 2021. I had a chemical recurrence that was detected by a rapidly rising PSA a couple of years ago, and that led to those 20 sessions of radiation and hormone therapy for a period of 6 months in 2024. And interestingly, up until today, I never had a single person in the Canadian medical system tell me that they thought prostate cancer was related to Lynch syndrome. And so I'm so appreciative of that because I have something to take back there. I believed it was, especially since my uncle had passed from it and that I was facing it. So this is my reason right here. I know we all have it. This picture was actually taken the day before I presented the slides to you folks. And this is my crew here. These are our 4 daughters, my 2 son-in-laws, my granddaughter who decided for some reason she didn't want to have hair this summer. That's Georgia out front. And then my step-grandson, Logan, who's right beside her there. So living with Lynch, I have annual dermatologist appointments, and if I can't get in, sometimes in Canada it takes a long time to get in, my general practitioner will also check over and make sure. And I have several precancerous biopsies that have been removed over the years. I have annual colonoscopies every fall. Every November, I get to see the same people. I go in and say hi. They all know me by name now. But it has become a regular routine. And I don't know about any of you, but our routine, because I go annually for the colonoscopy, for me, it's 48 hours of starving. I'm so hungry by the time I get out of there. And our routine is we have a pizza restaurant that's just around the corner from the hospital. And I go and get 2 slices of my favorite pizza. And so far, it has been only the removal of precancerous polyps. And it's usually every year, sometimes every second year, but especially in the last 10 years. And I don't know if there's something to do with that, but since I had my surgery in 2007, the last 10 or so, there's always polyps that are being removed. And I think you all know what's important with that is that my mother, she actually had her recurrence between annual colonoscopies. And I know that was touched on earlier today as well. And so that's something that I live with every single day. And that's where it really impacts my mental health is I'm like, you really hope that when that colonoscopy is being done, that they're not missing anything. But the cool part for me is that I'm actually awake for my colonoscopies because I say I have a streamlined colon because I lost half of it back in 2007. I rarely experience any discomfort. So the procedure is quite simple for me. And I actually talk to the staff as they're doing it. And I know, crazy. But my doctor, and he talks to me and he says, okay, here's another polyp or here, and I'm going to go into this crevice here because this is where something could hide. So I actually get an awful lot out of that. And as far as my prostate cancer, in the way I keep that at bay is through the PSA testing, and I get quarterly PSA tests. And I'm really happy to report I finished my radiation last July, a year ago July, and my PSA is remaining undetectable. So with all of this, living with Lynch, it's the screening, right? It's the screening, knowing what to look for. So it's for them, for all of them. So advocacy and managing my mental health. As a police officer, I saw some things that nobody should ever see. I knew that going in. Mind you, I was 23 and I didn't really understand the impact that would have, I guess. Um, and I was an adolescent, young adult, AYA, I had those cancer diagnoses, and I know that that's also impacted me as well. Um, but as a result of that, I have a strong relationship with a clinical counselor. Um, and then I talk about the crocodiles that are below the surface. That's how I stay in my boat in the water, keeping away from those crocodiles, is managing my mental health. And I've also made the decision to share my story at an early age. While I was recovering from prostate cancer surgery, I started to jot down things about everything I was doing. And the main reason I did that is because of what I mentioned earlier. I was 50 and I didn't have anybody to talk to. And so I said, I want to be that guy. And so the province of British Columbia, through the BC Cancer Agency, when they get a younger person like myself diagnosed with something like prostate cancer, they actually direct them to me. And I probably, you can ask my wife, I take calls every couple of weeks from somebody who was in my position, and I get so much out of that. And I'm never ashamed to speak about my mental health. I've also joined several men's online support communities, including Man Up to Cancer. It's a 3,200 member worldwide men's online cancer community that was founded in 2019 by Trevor Maxwell. I know quite a few people in this room know who he is. He was 41 years old 7 years ago and diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And he did not manage it well. He thought he was failing as a father, as a husband. And his wife actually found him one evening curled up crying in his bedroom, didn't think that he could proceed with his life. And so he decided that he wanted to reach out to some people to try to get that help that he needed for his mental health. And so he went to the Dempsey Center. He lives in Maine, and he went to do some counseling. And he went and did some sessions with some other people facing the same things he was with. And he realized when he walked into the room, he was the only man. So he, at the end of 2019, founded Man Up to Cancer as an opportunity for men to be able to be, most of it virtually, but as an opportunity for men to be together to talk about their issues, whether it's mental health, specific cancer types. And so our main goal is to make sure that men realize that they're not alone and to help them avoid isolation. I became involved in Man Up to Cancer in 2020 as a then two-time survivor. And then interestingly, as I said, in 2021, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and the group itself was a great resource for me to reach out to other people and I did find a couple other men in that group who were in their 50s to talk to help with treatment decisions. And when I met Trevor in person the first time in 2022, he asked if I would take on an extremely important role with the organization because of all the members we have, and that was to direct the chapters and meetups for the group. And we have 50 chapters worldwide, mostly in North America. And my main goal is to connect men, sometimes virtually and sometimes in person. In fact, yesterday morning, I met with the Colorado chapter guys for breakfast here in Denver. And then I also manage almost 1,000 virtual or in-person meetups throughout the world as a result of what we're doing. I'm also a member of the board of directors and on the leadership team for Man Up to Cancer. This is the part of the story I'm really excited to share. Lynch syndrome, my family's Lynch syndrome ends with me. You see the picture of my 3 daughters, see the picture of my brother, and then there's Georgia still with hair. My daughters and my brother all tested negative for Lynch syndrome. Everybody tested negative. All of my first cousins tested negative for Lynch syndrome. So it ends with me. So terrible to have, I agree with that, but because knowledge is power, as we've said, it's just something I have to manage with the support of all these people, but I don't have to worry about what they're going to face the rest of their lives. I have no idea how long I've been up here. I hope I haven't been too far. But these 5 gentlemen that are in this photograph with me are some of the main members of the leadership team for Man Up to Cancer. One of our a 7th guy that would have been in that picture had passed away, and we were at his celebration of life when we took this photo back in June in Houston. And these guys are all doing the same thing I'm doing all around North America, sharing our stories and connecting men and trying to make sure that no man has to face cancer alone. And as a result of that, if the general message here is that in order to do this, I have to manage my mental health. And these guys have become some of my best friends. So if you ever need to reach out, I traveled all the way here and forgot to bring cards. So I feel free to take a picture or you come see me afterwards. I will talk to you about just about anything. If you want to connect with our group or you know a man that may benefit from this, please reach out. That's my contact information. At the end of the day, we don't want any man to face cancer alone because I think you would all agree, men are really bad at cancering. That's what I say. They're really bad at knowing how to manage their mental health. And I'll end with this. When I found out that my PSA was off the charts back in September of 2020, which led to my prostate cancer diagnosis, I didn't even know what a prostate was, didn't know what it did. I didn't know what a PSA was. And I thought, well, how did I get to all of this part without knowing? And then you compare that to a woman. I think most women, especially probably in their teens to early 20s, they know almost everything there is to know about their body. So I've made it my mission. As I said, I'm wearing cancer shirts. I've got the tattoo. Come and talk to me. I'll talk to you about anything. Thank you very much.
All right. You guys are both just so amazing and so inspirational. And we just truly appreciate you sharing your story. And one voice can make a huge difference. And you guys have shown us that. We have some time, not a lot, but we have some time for questions. Okay, well, I will ask you a question then for both of you. I think one of the things that we hear a lot of people say, we've been talking about policy, we've been talking about change, we've been talking about, there's still so much to do. And I think a lot of people kind of say, I'm one person, I'm only one person. How can I, make a change? What advice would you give them?
I think today is just a great example. I've already spoken to a few people during the breaks here, and as I was saying earlier, when I decided that I wanted to share my story, I actually did a memoir, and I did it with the understanding that even if it was just one other 50-year-old man that I could help um, navigate this process, because especially like I think about the CRC world when you're worried about having an ostomy, what other like dating, all of those things that come with that. In the prostate cancer world, um, my wife is 7 years younger than me. Like we were newly married when all this was going on, and I just felt that if I could get through this, I want to be there for that other guy who may have questions to get through this. So if it's just one person, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I would second everything he said. And I think the mosquito bite quote's very applicable here. And I think Molly McMaster, who founded the Colon Club, wrote a book called One Drop of Rain. And it's that concept of one drop creates a ripple. And so I think, we know research shows that the power of story is huge. And so we can produce all the flyers and brochures in the world, but one of us sharing on Facebook or Instagram or to our neighbor what we're going through, what we have, sometimes will open so many more doors. So I think that's enough. And just you sharing your story for yourself and others is always going to be enough.
Yes.
Thank you both. That was awesome. This question is for both of you, but maybe a little more towards Don. It's actually, I'm going to ask for some advice because about 60 to 70%, I think, of my clinic is prostate cancer. And curious your thoughts on how to encourage people, and maybe men in particular, who are reluctant to seek out either support groups or mental health counseling or medication. Do you have any advice on how to approach that?
Yeah, it's something that we hear quite often, especially when it comes to, I think for the men in the room here that have to go for their annual checkups and they have the digital rectal exam. It's just something I don't even think the doctor wants to do. But what I, and seriously, I went 28 years in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and it was actually on the checkbox to do it, and neither one of us talked about it, so it didn't get done. It probably would have also, I probably would have been diagnosed a little sooner than I was, but I think it's just simply it's sharing the stories we're sharing. And I'm hoping that at least if I can impact maybe one person here today to go and get their PSA. So it's just keeping on top of it and sharing that if I can do this, then anybody can. So again, if you have the ability to influence one person's life, I'm going to keep doing it.
And I can't speak to prostate checks, but I'm not a therapist, but I'm gonna pass along something I learned from therapy, and that it's most effective when you have the combination of resource and readiness. And so I think the resources there's online, there's in person, there's AI now, so I don't think resource is a problem, but sometimes people just aren't ready. And so I had to give myself that space at times in this healing journey that sometimes, and even now still, like I'm ready now to talk about my ostomy. Was I here 18 months ago? Like probably not. I wouldn't have been on a stage proclaiming the glories of an ileostomy to you guys. So, life ebbs and flows. And so I think if somebody's not resourced or ready today, maybe they will be tomorrow.
Speeches. I have two young boys, 17 and 19, and my wife, my lovely wife back there, she's Lynch syndrome. And if you could, just one or 2 points that maybe you could share with us about how we can broach the subject, be grateful.
Sure. Approach the subject with our children. In my scenario, although we knew cancer was running prevalent through the family, we knew something was up. In 2011, when I was officially diagnosed with Lynch syndrome, in my scenario, my children were already late teens, almost. My oldest was almost 20 years old, so it was actually a pretty easy conversation with them. They did take it pretty mildly. They didn't seem overly concerned about it. They were mostly concerned for dad at the time. But we had honest and open conversations at that time. I had that advantage because of their age. And so they still did wait a little while before they got their testing done. But I didn't share this earlier. My oldest daughter deals with some anxiety issues. And when the first two, they got their testing done early, based on the conversations they'd had with me and my wife about making sure they got it. They knew that it was for their own peace of mind, they needed to know. And they both came back negative. And then my oldest daughter, she waited another couple of years before she would get tested because she's like, odds are somebody's getting it, right? And I remember I knew that she was getting that phone call that day, getting the results. And when the phone rang, it was just an incredible feeling to get that, Dad, I'm negative. So my advice is, I think, especially if the kids are older, is just be honest with them and tell them exactly what's going on and let them make that decision.
I would agree. So like I said, my kids are adopted, so I'm in a different situation, but I would say I'd approach it similar to how I've approached my kids' adoption stories with them, where we've been open and honest since the beginning. My oldest is biracial, so it's obvious that people were fun to figure out in the store. So we've always taken that approach of we're going to, as much as she can understand based on her age, we're going to be open about it. And for my kids, we don't think cancer is running in their families, but we know mental health is. And so we've been very open about, hey, here's mental health struggles. Here's what you're going to need to watch out for as you get older. And it destigmatizes it, because now that they're getting older, it's something they've always kind of talked about. So I think for your kids, if you guys are here, you're open, you're living with Lynch. And I think all of us in this room are living with Lynch. And I know there's survivors here and previvors here. And so you can have a very full life with Lynch syndrome. And then I would also say, go find Robin Dubin, because she's been through your situation with her boys. And I think she'd be a, there she is. She'd be a well of wisdom back there.
Any other questions?
I don't have any questions. I met a gal when I was 20 years old at the University of North Dakota. We fell in love and decided we wanted to get married. And she said, "You need to know, I have a pretty serious disease, lupus, and I probably will never be able to have any children. And you just need to know that now so that you can move on and have a life." Well, there's 2 kids in my family, but I moved here in 1981 with her. And she had a 40-year journey at the University of Colorado hospitals through a variety of chronic diseases. And the last one she was diagnosed with 2 years before she died was colorectal cancer. It was while she was here that doctors at CU said, "You know, you should probably be tested for the BRCA gene. You lost your mom to cancer, you lost your aunt to cancer, your great aunt to cancer, your dad to pancreatic cancer." And there she was. And I suppose at some level I could say I have a love affair with UC Health. But I feel very blessed as a geologist to have fallen in love with biology and a whole other field of science. So I just wanted to say thank you to you folks. What great stories. And to see you. And well, this is the best mental health session that I could have this year. And so thank you very much.
Any other questions? You guys itching for happy hour? I will let Swati close.
Right. Another round of applause, both for Don and Danielle and all of our amazing speakers throughout the day. It's just, we can put together all the logistics of this, but really what it comes down to are the outstanding experts and speakers that came to share their expertise with us, and all of you who decided to spend your Saturday afternoon and day with us. So we just have a few last closing announcements. We don't have to take much time with them. Probably the most important one is that we need your feedback. You kind of heard a few times throughout the day today how we adjusted the program today a little bit based on the feedback that you provided us. So there's QR codes on the back of your badge. They're on the programs that are kind of crumpled up. But please provide us your feedback, because that will guide how we do this conference in the future. So I just want to end with kind of revisiting this question. So take out your phones again, scan that QR or text to the number 22333, Lynch 2025. Okay, who's crying? I'm crying. This is beautiful. And this is exactly why we do what we do. And to see this shape through the course of the day, we heard some hard things, a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of burden that that you all face. But it's incredible to see that Don and Danielle are right. Sharing our stories, coming together and building community makes a huge difference. So thank you all for being here. We're really excited to spend some time with our patient advocacy partners outside, mingle, get to know each other, share contact information. And we really, really look forward to seeing you all, not just in the clinic where you're not wearing clothes and I'm not wearing real clothes, but at these events in the future. So thank you all for being here.